Hello, Mr. Josephs here. I'm going to read to you today about ions. So here we go. Ions. Ions are a very important concept in chemistry. A firm understanding of ions will be of great benefit to understand many other chemistry topics. An ion is a charged particle that forms from a neutral atom. As you have already learned, atoms are neutral because they contain equal numbers of protons and electrons. The positive charges possessed by the protons balances the negative charges possessed by the electrons. In the process of forming an ion, at least one electron is either lost or gained by an atom. This leaves an overall charge imbalance between protons and electrons. If an electron is lost from a neutral atom, more protons exist in the nucleus than do electrons in the surrounding electron cloud. The newly formed ion, it is no longer called an atom since it has lost an electron, possesses a charge of positive 1, written as +1. Below is an illustrated example of the formation of a lithium ion from a lithium atom. As can be seen in the illustration above, an atom of lithium contains 3 protons in the nucleus. This particular atom also happens to have 4 neutrons, which matters not a bit in this discussion of ions. 3 protons. The lithium atom also contains 3 electrons, which balance the charges of the protons, resulting in a neutral charge for the atom overall. 1, 2, 3 electrons. On the other hand, the lithium ion, while also containing 3 protons, only contains 2 electrons. 2 electrons are not enough to completely balance the charge of the 3 protons. This means that the overall charge on the lithium ion will be positive, protons possessing positive charge and being more numerous than the electrons, which possess negative charge. Because the difference between the number of protons is greater than the number of electrons by 1, the specific charge on the ion is positive 1. The lithium ion example explores how an atom can form an ion when it loses an electron. But what happens when an atom gains an electron? What happens when an atom gains or loses more than 1 electron? Let's examine another example to answer these questions. Let's start with an oxygen atom and see what happens when it gains 2 electrons. See the illustration below. In this case, because the neutral atom gains 2 negative subatomic particles, the electrons, the resulting ion is negatively charged. The oxygen ion, like the oxygen atom, has 8 protons in its nucleus. The electron orbitals surrounding the nucleus contain a total of 10 electrons. Because the number of protons is less than the number of electrons by 2, the total charge on the oxygen ion is negative 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 electrons, and only 8 protons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. From these 2 examples of ion formation, we can draw several general understandings. Firstly, that if the number of protons in an ion is greater than the number of electrons, then the charge on the ion will be positive. If the number of protons is less than the number of electrons, then the charge will be negative. Secondly, the magnitude, the numerical strength of ionic charge, will be equal to the difference between the number of protons and the number of electrons contained within the ion. Let's look at these practice problems. Practice problem number 1. Suppose an atom of silver loses 1 electron to form an ion. What is the charge on the silver ion? Practice problem number 2. If an atom of magnesium loses 2 electrons to become a magnesium ion, how many electrons does a magnesium ion contain? And finally, practice problem number 3. A sulfide ion, an ion of sulfur, contains 18 electrons. What is the charge on a sulfur ion? And has an atom of sulfur lost or gained electrons to form this ion? And that's our little introduction to ions.